Are some families truly marked for tragedy, or is it simply that their high profiles make their ordinary human suffering more visible to the world? When wealth, power, and fame can't protect a family from devastating loss, what hope is there for the rest of us? Number 8. The Kennedy Curse. Have you ever wondered if some families are simply destined for tragedy? Could a single family truly be cursed? The Kennedy family name evokes images of American royalty, political power, and devastating loss. Behind the glamorous facade lies a stunning pattern of untimely deaths that has haunted America's most famous political dynasty for generations. It all began with Joseph Kennedy Jr., the eldest son and heir apparent to the family's political ambitions. During World War II, he volunteered for a dangerous mission flying a bomber packed with explosives. The aircraft exploded prematurely over the English Channel in 1944, killing him instantly and devastating his father's dreams for his political future. The tragedy marked just the beginning of what would become known as the Kennedy Curse. Just 4 years later, Kathleen Kick Kennedy, a vibrant and rebellious Kennedy daughter who had married into British nobility against her family's wishes, died in a plane crash in France at only 28. The string of aviation disasters continued when John F. Kennedy's sister-in-law and brother-in-law died when their private plane went down in 1964. But the most shocking tragedy struck the nation when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas on November 22, 1963. The young, charismatic president who had captured America's imagination was gunned down in his motorcade, creating one of the most traumatic moments in American history. His death at 46 left a young widow, 2 small children, and a nation in mourning. The family's suffering continued when Robert F. Kennedy, who had served as Attorney General and was running for president, was assassinated in 1968 at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. He had just won the California primary and was poised to possibly secure the Democratic nomination when he was shot at close range. He died at 42, leaving behind a pregnant wife and 10 children. Many Americans thought the tragic pattern had finally ended, but in 1999, John F. Kennedy Jr., along with his wife Carolyn and sister-in-law Lauren Bessette, died when the small plane he was piloting crashed into the Atlantic Ocean off Martha's Vineyard. The handsome son of the former president, once dubbed America's Prince, was only 38. In 2019, another Kennedy descendant, Saoirse Kennedy Hill, granddaughter of Robert F. Kennedy, died of an accidental overdose at just 22 years old. More recently, in 2020, Maeve Kennedy Townsend McKean and her 8-year-old son Gideon drowned in a canoeing accident in Chesapeake Bay. What makes the Kennedy tragedies so shocking isn't just their frequency, but how they've repeatedly struck down family members in their prime, often in violent or sudden ways. From plane crashes to assassinations, the pattern has led many to speculate about a family curse, though others point to the family's risk-taking lifestyle and their prominence in dangerous professions like politics. Number 7. The Grimaldi Curse. Did you know that even royalty isn't immune to repeated tragedy? What if centuries-old legends actually came true? Monaco's royal Grimaldi family, known for its glamour and wealth, has endured so many tragedies that people often speak of the Grimaldi curse that supposedly began in the 13th century. Legend has it that Prince Rainier I of Monaco kidnapped and assaulted a beautiful young woman who, in turn, cursed his family line, declaring that never will a Grimaldi find true happiness in marriage. Whether you believe in curses or not, the family's history reveals a startling pattern of marital discord and unexpected deaths. The most famous Grimaldi was likely Grace Kelly, the Hollywood actress who became Princess Grace when she married Prince Rainier III in 1956. Their fairy tale romance captured worldwide attention, but ended in tragedy when Princess Grace died in a car crash in 1982 after suffering a stroke while driving on Monaco's treacherous mountain roads. She was just 52, and her death devastated the small principality. Princess Grace's daughter, Princess Stephanie, who was in the car during the fatal crash, survived but carried the emotional scars. Stephanie later faced a series of failed relationships and marriages. Meanwhile, Princess Caroline, Grace's other daughter, lost her second husband, Stefano Casaraghi, in a speedboat racing accident in 1990, leaving her a widow with 3 young children. Even Prince Rainier himself, who never remarried after Grace's death, suffered from heart and lung problems before dying in 2005. His son and current ruler, Prince Albert II, faced numerous challenges in his personal life before finally marrying in his 50s. The tragedies continue to the present day. In 2008, Caroline's former son-in-law, Diego Salomon, died in a club after a fight. In 2018, Baroness Elizabeth Ann de Massey, Prince Albert's first cousin, died at age 73, followed by her son Christian de Massey in 2022. The Grimaldis remain one of Europe's oldest royal families, ruling the tiny but wealthy Principality of Monaco since the 13th century. Despite their privilege, wealth, and status, they've endured a disproportionate share of tragedy and misfortune, particularly related to marriages and relationships. Many Monaco citizens still speak in hushed tones about the centuries-old curse, wondering if any Grimaldi will ever find lasting happiness. Number 6. The Getty Oil Dynasty. Can money buy happiness? Or does extreme wealth attract extreme tragedy? The Getty family, once America's richest oil dynasty, has experienced so many calamities that people have long speculated about a Getty curse. J. Paul Getty, the family patriarch who founded the Getty Oil Company, became the world's richest man in the 1950s but led a life marked by personal tragedy. Despite his immense wealth, Getty was notoriously frugal and often distant from his family members. He married and divorced 5 times and had troubled relationships with his children. His son Timmy died at age 12 from a brain tumor, while another son, George, stabbed himself to death with a barbecue fork while under the influence of drugs and alcohol in 1973. Perhaps the most infamous Getty tragedy occurred in 1973 when J. Paul Getty's grandson, John Paul Getty III, was kidnapped in Rome. The kidnappers demanded a ransom of $17 million, but the elderly Getty initially refused to pay, saying, "I have 14 grandchildren. If I pay 1 penny now, then I'll have 14 kidnapped grandchildren." The kidnappers then cut off John Paul III's right ear and mailed it to a newspaper. Getty eventually paid a reduced ransom of about $3 million, but the experience left young John Paul III traumatized. Years later, John Paul Getty III suffered a drug-induced stroke that left him paralyzed and partially blind until his death in 2011. His son, actor Balthazar Getty, has spoken about the family's pattern of tragedy and his own struggles with drugs and infidelity. In 2015, Andrew Getty, grandson of J. Paul Getty, was found dead in his Hollywood Hills home at age 47 under suspicious circumstances. The official cause was bleeding from an ulcer complicated by methamphetamine use, but family members questioned the findings. Gordon Getty, one of J. Paul Getty's sons who inherited billions after his father's death, faced his own family scandal when it was revealed he had a secret second family with 3 daughters. Meanwhile, his son Andrew died from intestinal bleeding in 2015. Most recently, in 2020, J. Paul Getty's great-granddaughter, Ivy Getty, lost both her father John Gilbert Getty and her grandmother Anne Getty within months of each other. What makes the Getty tragedies particularly striking is how they've continued despite, or perhaps because of, the family's enormous wealth. From kidnappings to drug addiction to mysterious deaths, the Getty family history reads like a cautionary tale about the potential dark side of extreme wealth and the pressure it can place on family relationships. Number 5. The Hemingway Legacy. Is literary genius linked to mental torment? Could a tendency towards self-destruction be passed down through generations? The Hemingway family, whose patriarch Ernest revolutionized American literature, has experienced a shocking pattern of suicides that spans multiple generations. Ernest Hemingway himself, the Nobel Prize-winning author known for works like The Old Man and the Sea and A Farewell to Arms, took his own life with a shotgun in 1961. His father, Clarence Hemingway, had also died by suicide in 1928, using a Civil War pistol that had belonged to his own father. The pattern continued with shocking consistency. Ernest's sister Ursula died by suicide in 1966, while another sister, Marceline, had died by suicide in 1963. His brother Lester ended his life with a gunshot in 1982. Most devastating of all, Ernest's granddaughter, actress and model Margox Hemingway, took her own life with an overdose in 1996, 35 years to the day after her famous grandfather's suicide. The family's struggles with mental health extend beyond suicide. Ernest suffered from depression, paranoia, and alcoholism throughout much of his adult life. His son Gregory experienced gender dysphoria and substance abuse issues before dying in a women's jail cell after being arrested for indecent exposure. Ernest's niece Lorian Hemingway has written extensively about her battles with alcoholism and mental illness. Many researchers have studied what they call the Hemingway curse, pointing to potential genetic factors for depression and bipolar disorder that may run in the family. 7 members of the family have died by suicide over 4 generations, a rate far exceeding statistical norms. Ernest's youngest son, Patrick Hemingway, has spoken about the family's tragic legacy, noting that many Hemingways suffered from a genetic condition called hemochromatosis, which causes iron to build up in the body and can lead to physical pain, diabetes, and mental effects including depression and psychiatric disorders. Beyond potential biological factors, the pressure of living in the shadow of Ernest Hemingway's towering literary legacy created its own burden. His writing style and public persona celebrated a particular brand of masculinity: stoic, adventurous, hard drinking, that may have created impossible standards for his male descendants. The Hemingway family story raises profound questions about the intersection of genius and mental illness, about hereditary factors in depression and suicide, and about how families cope with repeated tragedy. Despite, or perhaps because of, their extraordinary creative gifts, the Hemingways have paid an extraordinary price in human suffering. Number 4. The Bhutto political dynasty. How much would you sacrifice for political power? What happens when a family becomes synonymous with a nation's politics? Pakistan's Bhutto family has dominated the country's politics for generations, but their prominence has come at a terrible cost, with assassinations, executions, and mysterious deaths decimating the family's ranks. The dynasty began with Sir Shah Nawaz Bhutto, a prominent politician in pre-partition India, but truly rose to power with his son, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who served as Pakistan's president and prime minister in the 1970s. Despite his popularity, Zulfikar was overthrown in a military coup led by General Zia-ul-Haq in 1977. After a controversial trial, he was hanged in 1979 on charges of authorizing the murder of a political opponent, charges many believed were politically motivated. 2 of Zulfikar's sons met equally tragic ends. Shahnawaz Bhutto was found dead in his apartment in Nice, France, in 1985 under mysterious circumstances. The family claimed he was poisoned, though French authorities ruled the death a suicide. His brother Murtaza Bhutto was killed in a police shootout near his home in Karachi in 1996. At the time, his sister Benazir was serving as prime minister, and some family members accused her government of involvement in the killing, creating a bitter family rift. Benazir Bhutto herself, who became the first woman to lead a Muslim-majority nation when she was elected prime minister in 1988, survived multiple assassination attempts throughout her political career. However, she was finally killed in December 2007 at a campaign rally in Rawalpindi when a gunman shot her before a suicide bomber detonated an explosive device. She was 54 years old and had just returned to Pakistan after years in exile. The tragedies continued into the next generation. Benazir's nephew Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Jr., son of Murtaza, died at age 32 from COVID-19 complications in 2022. Meanwhile, Benazir's widower, Asif Ali Zardari, spent years in prison on corruption charges he claimed were politically motivated. Despite the devastating toll on their family, the Bhuttos have remained central to Pakistani politics. Benazir's son, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, now leads the Pakistan People's Party that his grandfather founded and has served as foreign minister. The family's continued political involvement despite repeated tragedy speaks to both their commitment to their political ideals and the deeply dynastic nature of South Asian politics. What makes the Bhutto tragedies particularly striking is how directly they're tied to the family's political activities. Unlike some family tragedies that stem from accidents or health issues, the Bhuttos have paid the ultimate price directly for their political ambitions and activities, raising profound questions about the cost of power in volatile political environments. Number 3. The Onassis Shipping Empire. Is there a price for becoming too wealthy? Can money attract misfortune? The Greek shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis built one of the world's largest privately owned shipping fleets and amassed a fortune that made him one of the richest men in the world. Yet his family's story is marked by a series of devastating personal losses that no amount of money could prevent. Aristotle's only son, Alexander Onassis, died in a plane crash at Athens airport in 1973. He was only 24 years old and was being groomed to take over the family business. The crash left Alexander in a coma with massive brain injuries, and he died shortly afterward. Aristotle was devastated by the loss, reportedly saying, "The only reason to live is to see Alexander grow." His health deteriorated rapidly after his son's death. Just 2 years later, Aristotle himself died of respiratory failure triggered by myasthenia gravis, a chronic autoimmune neuromuscular disease. He was 69 years old. With both Aristotle and Alexander gone, the family business and fortune passed to Aristotle's daughter, Christina. Christina Onassis had a troubled life marked by failed marriages. She was married and divorced 4 times and struggled with depression and weight issues. In 1988, at age 37, she was found dead in a bathtub in Buenos Aires. The official cause was a heart attack caused by acute pulmonary edema, but her sudden death sparked rumors and conspiracy theories. Christina's death meant that Athena Onassis, her daughter who was just 3 years old at the time, became the sole heir to the Onassis fortune. Athena's early life was marked by a custody battle between her father, Thierry Roussel, and the executors of the Onassis estate. She grew up isolated and under heavy security due to kidnapping fears. As an adult, Athena has faced her own share of personal challenges. Her marriage to Brazilian Olympic showjumper Alvaro de Miranda Neto ended after he allegedly cheated on her. She was also seriously injured in a riding accident in 2016. The Onassis curse, as some have called it, extended even to those who married into the family. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, who married Aristotle in 1968, 5 years after the assassination of her first husband, President John F. Kennedy, found herself widowed a second time when Aristotle died. Though she lived until 1994, dying of non-Hodgkin lymphoma at age 64, her life was deeply shaped by the tragedies she experienced. What makes the Onassis family tragedies particularly poignant is how they undermine the common fantasy that extreme wealth can shield a family from life's hardships. Despite having access to the best of everything money could buy, the Onassis family experienced loss after loss, suggesting that some things like death and heartbreak transcend economic status. Number 2. The Romanov dynasty. What happens when an entire royal family is wiped out in a single night? Can political revolution justify the murder of children? The Russian Imperial Romanov family ruled Russia for more than 300 years before meeting a brutal end that shocked the world and marked one of history's most infamous mass murders of a single family. The Romanov dynasty began in 1613 when Michael Romanov was elected Tsar, and the family ruled Russia until the February Revolution of 1917 forced Tsar Nicholas II to abdicate. The family, Nicholas, his wife Alexandra, their 4 daughters Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia, and son Alexei, were initially held under house arrest. In July 1918, Bolshevik revolutionaries led the family to a basement room in the house where they were being held in Yekaterinburg, supposedly for their protection. Instead, a firing squad entered and shot the entire family, their physician, and 3 servants. Those who initially survived the gunfire were stabbed with bayonets. The children's bodies were doused with acid and buried in a secret location to hide the evidence. For decades, rumors persisted that Anastasia, the youngest daughter, had somehow survived the massacre. Several women came forward claiming to be the lost princess, most famously Anna Anderson, who maintained her claim until her death in 1984. However, DNA testing eventually proved that all members of the immediate imperial family had indeed been killed that night. The tragedy of the Romanovs extended beyond the immediate family. Grand Duchess Elizabeth Fedorovna, Alexandra's sister, was thrown down a mine shaft with other members of the extended royal family the day after the Tsar and his family were murdered. The bodies of Nicholas II's brother, Grand Duke Michael Alexandrovich, and his secretary were never found, though they were presumed murdered by Bolsheviks in June 1918. What makes the Romanov tragedy especially haunting is how it juxtaposes extreme privilege with extreme brutality. The family had lived in unimaginable luxury in palaces with servants catering to their every need, yet they died in a dirty basement, their bodies treated with contempt and hidden away. Adding another layer to the tragedy was the fact that young Alexei suffered from hemophilia, a bleeding disorder that was kept secret from the Russian people. His condition had led his mother to place her trust in the controversial holy man Rasputin, whose influence over the imperial family contributed to their unpopularity and, ultimately, to their downfall. In 2000, the Russian Orthodox Church canonized the Romanov family as passion bearers, recognizing their religious devotion and the tragic circumstances of their deaths. Their remains were finally given a proper burial in 1998, 80 years after their murders, in St. Petersburg's Peter and Paul Cathedral, the traditional resting place of Russian czars. Number 1. The House of Braganza. Did you ever wonder what happens when a royal dynasty collapses? How many horrors can a single family endure? Portugal's House of Braganza, once one of Europe's most powerful royal families, experienced a staggering series of tragedies that ultimately led to the fall of the Portuguese monarchy. The Braganza dynasty ruled Portugal from 1640 to 1910, but their last century of rule was marked by a seemingly endless series of devastating events. King Pedro V, who came to the throne at just 16 years old in 1853, was considered a promising ruler with progressive ideas. However, his reign was cut tragically short when he died of typhoid fever or cholera at age 24 in 1861. His 2 younger brothers, Ferdinand and John, died of the same illness within weeks of Pedro. Pedro was succeeded by his brother Louis I, who ruled until 1889. Louis's son, Carlos I, would become the penultimate king of Portugal and meet a violent end that shocked Europe. On February 1, 1908, King Carlos I, his wife Queen Amélie, their son and heir Crown Prince Louis Philippe, and their younger son Manuel were traveling in an open carriage through Lisbon when 2 Republican assassins opened fire. The king was killed instantly with a shot to the neck, and Louis Philippe was mortally wounded, dying about 20 minutes later. Queen Amélie reportedly tried to defend her younger son Manuel with a bouquet of flowers she was holding. Manuel, just 18 years old, survived with a minor wound and was proclaimed King Manuel II. However, his reign lasted only 2 years before the 5 October 1910 revolution overthrew the monarchy, forcing Manuel and the remaining royal family into exile. Manuel lived out his days in England, dying in 1932 without heirs, thus ending the main line of the House of Braganza. The Braganzas' troubles weren't confined to Portugal. The Brazilian branch of the family, which had ruled the Empire of Brazil since its independence from Portugal, experienced its own share of tragedies. Emperor Pedro II, who ruled Brazil for 58 years, was deposed in an 1889 military coup and sent into exile with his family. His heir, Princess Isabel, never got to rule despite having served as regent multiple times during her father's absence. Emperor Pedro II died in Paris 2 years after his overthrow, reportedly clutching a small bag of Brazilian soil. What makes the Braganza tragedies particularly striking is how quickly the family fell from the height of power to obscurity. Within just a few decades, a dynasty that had ruled for centuries across 2 continents was reduced to exiled pretenders living in foreign lands. The various branches of the Braganza family experienced almost every type of royal tragedy imaginable: premature deaths from illness, assassinations, coups, exile, and ultimately, extinction of the main family line. Their story stands as a dramatic example of how quickly fortune can turn, even for those born to the highest positions in society. Are some families truly marked for tragedy, or is it simply that their high profiles make their ordinary human suffering more visible to the world? When wealth, power, and fame can't protect a family from devastating loss, what hope is there for the rest of us?